Okay, so today I'm going to cover some odds and ends, mishmash, nothing really focused, but stuff that's good to know. One thing I want to talk about is style. That is what are the naming conventions for classes, variables, constants, things like that. Uh, where do you place your brackets, use white space, things like that. There's a great site here on GitHub which is a Java style guide. And by style, we mean how do we capitalize things? Where do we put the brackets? So let's get started. Classes. It's Java standard to start classes with a capital letter. So we have Java methods. And notice that the M is also capitalized. This is also a Java convention where if you have a name that combines multiple words, each word you capitalize the, um, the first letter of the word. They call this camel case. Okay, so you think of a camel, it's got a hump in the middle. Well, these names can have a hump in the middle. Um, you now It becomes clearer when you have a function name or a variable name. Here I have a function name called showString. Uh, Sometimes I use the word function. I should be saying method. When you're in a object-oriented programming language like Java and you're creating what used to be called functions, they're now called methods. So call it a method. And this methods have start with a lowercase letter, but if you add another word to it, then you uppercase that first letter of that word. So showString has a capital S for the string. That's an example of the camel case. Um, Constants. Constants are values that you define when you compile the program. They never change until you go back and edit this code and recompile the program. You can't change the value of a constant, and this is how you define a constant. We have to use the final uh, reserved word, and that says that this is not changeable. Public static final string, it's a string constant, and by Java conventions, constants are all uppercase, and my preference is if a constant has more than one word, you separate them with an underscore. So constants in Java are uppercase, and you all know that Java, just like C and C++, is case sensitive, right? So that means that ABC is not equal to ABC, and I should use the Java not equals ABC, right? We know that. Uh, Things have to be spelled exactly the same way in terms of case for Java to recognize that they're the same thing. Alright, so what am I doing here? I'm creating this constant called string, const string, and I'm setting it to the default value of A, B, C, D, E. And I'm creating this class called Java methods. And I've got my main method, which is required. And I've also got a second method defined called showString. And this method is type string, which means it expects to return a string value. And what it returns is the constant string that we defined up above. This program makes no sense in terms of you'd never write anything like this. What I'm trying to demonstrate is that within a class, you can have, in addition to the main function, you can have other methods such as showString, and in fact a class will normally have lots of different methods in it. So what am I doing here? I'm saying system out println showString. I'm concentrating on this line right now. System.out.println showString. What is this calling? It's calling this method here, which is returning const underscore string. Alright, So then I have this line down here, and it also is using a showString method, but it's using a method that exists in a different class. System.out.println myfunc.showString. So where is myfunc? Where is that? Well, within my Java file, I've defined a second class called myfunc for my functions or my funky grandmother or whatever. Myfunc. And this class has a main, which doesn't really do anything. And then it's got a method called showString. And it returns the constant string, but look, it has to refer to it using the Java methods class. So when you're in one class and you want to reference something in another class, you've got to use the class name before the variable or the method that you're using. Okay, so getting back to where we were. System out println myfunc showString. Myfunc showString returns the constant that's defined in the class above. Alright, that's straightforward enough. But look, I've got another method defined within the myfunc class called showString not static. Okay, and it does exactly the same thing, doesn't it? It returns Java methods const string. So what's the difference functionally between these two things? This one is declared static, this one is not declared static. So what does the static do for this function, and what happens to this function if you don't have the static? Well, when you have a static function, that means or a static method, got to remember that. When you have a static method, you do not have to create an instance of the class to call that method. You can call that method without creating an instance of the class. If, on the other hand, the method is not static, in order to call that method, you have to create an instance of the class object. Alright, let's see what that means up here. So here I'm calling the static function showString in myfunc. Down here I'm calling the showString not static method. But before I call it, I have to create an instance of the myfunc class. So I have myfunc mf equals new myfunc. So mf is now a variable. It's actually an object. It's an object variable that is created in the structure of the myfunc class. And once I have that created, I can then use the mf object to call methods that are not static. This is a lot at one shot, but I kind of felt I would at least introduce it. The code is on the web page. You can try it out. My point is that within a Java file you can have multiple classes. One class can call methods of another class, and what the role of the static reserved word is in making a function, a method, available without having to instantiate the object. Very, very technical stuff, but I hope you followed it. You can let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.